What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to Philly with Jon Marks on PHLY. The voice is not better, but I made sure I didn't try to get too hot early. My voice is cracking. Good morning to everybody out there watching live on YouTube. Our mad chatters out there that follow the show. Join our community. Watch the show live on YouTube every morning at 8 o'clock. Be involved in the chat. We have a lot of fun. Everybody out there watching on TV. Roku, Samsung Plus, also now on Xfinity. Good morning to you out there. Our podcast listeners that listen about 9 o'clock every day. The audio is available. Hello to you out there as well. Philly with Jon Marks is always presented by Bet Parks and Central City Toyota. What is up, everybody? Good show today. Uncle Jamie's going to join us later on, because I got to dive into Bill Belichick. We'll talk about the college football playoff, but Bill friggin' Belichick's the head coach of North Carolina. Who would have thought? It's crazy. It's a great story. We'll talk about that later on in the show. We have some Eagles and Steelers stuff as well. Tyler Zulli's going to update us on everything else during the headlines. The Phillies lose out. What is exactly going on with them? I want to start right here, though, because yesterday it came down. Jeffrey Lurie sold 8% of the Eagles. 8% of the Eagles. So the Eagles are now valued at $8.3 billion. He bought the team in 1994 for $185 million. That's a hell of a return on your investment, huh? It's now worth $8.3 billion 30 years later. But 8%, I got my calculator out this morning. 8% of $8.3 billion is a cool $664 million. All right, so more on that coming up in a second, because there are some rumors of a potential dome stadium perhaps on the horizon. But Jeffrey Lurie, since he bought the team in 1994, I remember initially he was very out in the public. He was shaking hands in parking lots. He was really taking over for Norman Brayman. He was very popular. Norman Brayman literally bought the team, got it off Leonard Toews, who was dead broke, bought the team for nothing. He was a used car dealer or a car dealer, and Norman Brayman didn't sign Reggie White, didn't believe in free agency, pretty much let every great player of the Eagles leave. And he saved the team from moving to Phoenix, but he was a terrible, terrible owner. Everybody hated him. He sells the team to Jeffrey Lurie. And Jeffrey Lurie comes in right away, and he's like, all right, well, I want to win Super Bowls. And he modeled this franchise after the San Francisco 49ers. He wanted the West Coast offense. He hired Ray Rhodes. He hired John Gruden to be the offensive coordinator. You could see that he knew he was doing right off the bat. And it took a couple of years, and he had some failures, I'm sure. But then he hired Andy Reid in 1999. And really, since then, this has been one of the best franchises in the National Football League. Now, it took them a while to win a Super Bowl, but they were in a Super Bowl in 2004. They came close to going to other Super Bowls, and then finally broke through in 2017. Back 5 years later with another Super Bowl appearance that they nearly won. And now you look at this team right now and where they are very much poised to go back to the Super Bowl. And it may not happen. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how the team's going to play down the stretch. There's still a lot of things that need to happen for the Eagles to win another Super Bowl. But make no mistake about it, they're in position every year to be a team that can win the Super Bowl. And that's because of the organization that Jeffrey Lurie has set up. He is an elite owner. Jeffrey Lurie is a great owner. For a long time, he got crapped on. He made the gold standard comment because he thought that his team was the gold standard of the NFL. Well, you really should win a Super Bowl before you start talking about being a gold standard, right? But the Eagles are a great elite franchise. And just look at the successes of the team. Which brings me to the Dallas Cowboys. If you remember in the offseason, during the season this year, they were crying poor. They wouldn't re-sign Dak Prescott to the long-term contract until they signed him to the long-term contract and paid him a lot more money than they would have. They would have just paid him a year or two ago. They did the same thing with CeeDee Lamb. They're going to do the same thing with Micah Parsons. But having Dak Prescott on a franchise tag or a one-year contract, his cap number was huge. So they said, oh, well, we don't have enough money to sign him. Well, you do, but that's just your excuse. So yesterday, Stephen Jones, Jerry's son, and he's the executive vice president of the team. Really, he's the guy that wipes off Jerry's glasses when he's wearing his glasses and they get smudged. If you remember the Monday Night Football where he just handed him the glasses and he wiped them off. And he had said yesterday that they are more or less going to be poor again, cap poor again in 2025. Let me pull up exactly what he said here, and Tyler put it up there on the screen. But so they have the owners' meetings down there right now. They're actually in Dallas or in Irving, Texas. So Stephen Jones says, I think we knew we were going to have a challenge in 24 and 25. It's going to be really, really tight. We still have some money left over from the guys who are not here today, and you're going to have some other guys that won't be here in the future that's still going to have their cap count. So they're already putting it out there. Oh, it's going to be really tight like it was this year. I couldn't imagine being a Cowboys fan. The salary cap is the biggest bunch of baloney in sports. The NFL salary cap is literally crap. It's not a cap, it's crap. Yes, there's a salary cap. Yes, it ensures that you probably can't sign every player that you want. But when you give big signing bonuses and you pay up front, and then you're able to spread that number over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, the player never sees the end of those contracts. The contracts get ripped up, and then they redo the contracts. Howie Roseman isn't a genius. Jeffrey Lurie just pays big time money out in advance so they can space out those numbers over the salary cap. And they've been doing this for years. The Eagles have been doing this for years because Jeffrey Lurie spends money. They don't want to spend money in Dallas. Jerry Jones, how cheap is this dude? You think about this. The Cowboys are the highest valued franchise in sports, more than the Yankees, more than any other franchise. Look at the LA Dodgers. Look at the Yankees. Look at the money they're spending. The Dodgers are spending in the 300s for a baseball team. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, middle of the road, not signing big money free agents. They could very easily add to the team, like Derrick Henry. Jerry Jones, adamant. Oh, well, we didn't have the money to sign Derrick Henry. The Ravens gave Derrick Henry $9 million guaranteed. They gave Ezekiel Elliott $3 million guaranteed, and the guy sucks. He's cooked. And all they had to do with Derrick Henry, all right, maybe you're tight on the cap. All right, well, you give him a 5-year contract and you space the number out over 5 years, and then you rip it up. It is unbelievable that the Cowboys continue to operate like this. And not a lot of owners operate like this. If you want good players, you can sign good players. How many players on the Eagles are star players? Look at the offensive line. Everybody's getting paid except guys on their rookie contracts or Mekhi Becton, who's making a nice 1-year contract, by the way. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert's on a big contract. Jalen Hurts is on a big contract. They've been paying these guys out for years. Jeffrey Lurie just keeps writing big checks because when you're an owner in the NFL, you make big money. His franchise is worth $8.3 billion. He just sold 8% of his franchise for $664 million. So anytime that you're feeling bad about the Eagles or you're frustrated with the Eagles because they have sometimes they have kind of this internal turmoil that can happen. Jeffrey Lurie's the best owner, and we have good owners in this city. John Middleton's a great owner. Comcast with the Flyers, maybe not so much. I know we don't like Josh Harris, but Jeffrey Lurie, man, we're lucky to have Jeffrey Lurie as the owner of the Eagles. So just another reminder today with Stephen Jones, or yesterday with Stephen Jones coming out complaining about how the Cowboys don't have money to spend on their team next year. As we welcome in Tyler Zulli into the conversation. Jeffrey Lurie, he modernized the front office. He hired Joe Banner, and I can't stand Joe Banner. But Joe Banner was really, you want to talk about somebody that came in and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to re-sign our own players. We're going to get it at a discount. We're gonna stay within the salary cap. We're gonna be smart with our money. But then Joe Banner took it too far, and Jeffrey Lurie got rid of Joe Banner. He's been writing big checks ever since then. So it's great to see, and I'm happy for him. He's seen success, man. I remember for such a long time, and this wasn't that long ago, where people would say all the Eagles want to do is win 10 games so they can make the playoffs, so they can have a home playoff game, and they make a lot of money. They don't really care about winning. Jeffrey Lurie doesn't really care about winning. It's like, for a guy that's now a billionaire or whatever, why wouldn't you want to win? This is like his thing. Of course you want to win. Jerry Jones is the guy that obviously doesn't care about winning because he only cares about being in the news. And like for all the crap, like Ed Snyder, he couldn't buy a win because he tried. Ed Snyder spent a ton of money with the Flyers to try to win a cup, and he couldn't. But he cared enough to try to do it. Man, Jerry Jones doesn't care enough to do it. He doesn't care. What's up, Tyler?
Yeah,
good morning, man.
Good morning to you as well. And the funny thing is, too, we've talked about this plenty, where the valuation of especially NFL teams, but I think professional teams across the board, and especially in the major four in America, and then you talk about like the Premier League and La Ligas in Europe and things like that, like the big echelon leagues across the globe.
Oh, my God.
These teams make money just by existing.
Right.
Like their valuations rise regardless of their standing in play. Now, like, I understand that it's a little bit different in Europe than it is in here, and it's a little bit different in the NFL than it is even in the NHL or Major League Baseball specifically. But like, we looked at valuations of teams. The Dallas Cowboys are a $9 billion organization, like you brought up. They are the most valued team in sports. And when you said that, I went, no, it's got to be either like a Barcelona or a Manchester City. No, seriously, they are the most valuable team in all of sports, and it's by almost $2 billion.
That $9 million figure with the Eagles now being valued at 8.3, the Cowboys are probably going to be 12 or 13 now.
Sure.
I mean, legitimately, and it doesn't go down. It keeps going up.
Sure. So to have an ownership group that, listen, this is a business for them, and it's why when we talk about like when we talk about the Sixers ownership group being a part of the Washington Commanders ownership group, being a part of the Devils ownership group, and people go, Josh Harris is in it for the money. Yes, of course he's in it for the money, right? It's his business. There are certain owners across sports who desperately want to not only make their money, but desperately want to make their mark in victories as well. And Jeffrey Lurie has proven that he is one of those guys that wants to win, on top of, valuing his organization at, I believe the number was 4,300% return on investment from when he bought it. What year was it? 96, you said, or 90?
1994.
94. Yeah, so
30 years.
4,300% return on investment from the money that he bought it to the valuation that it is today. It's a combination that I think is overlooked because we as fans just want to, expect our team, our teams to want to win. But not every ownership group feels that way because the valuation of these teams continue to rise. They're just making money and making money and making money and making money. So it is an excellent thing to see when an ownership group and a front office are kind of in lockstep with, we're willing to spend money, we know how to spend money, and in this particular instance with this team, this Eagles team, Howie Roseman seems to have hit on a lot of the moves that they've made this year, and their draft was equally successful, at least at the top, with their first couple of guys. It's a rare occurrence that all three of those things come together at once. It's coming together at once for the Eagles right now. It's why they're the 11-2, 11-2, 10-2, 11-2. It's why they're 11-2. And it's why they are a team that's valuation continues to rise.
Yep, and it's not going to go down. Later on in the show, we'll talk about potential Dome Stadium. Actually, that's coming up in about 10 minutes from now. But let's get to the headlines here, Tyler. I know we have a lot that's going on. What is up?
Yeah, we got a ton to talk about. Moves that you brought up the Phillies, right? Moves the Phillies did make, moves that the Phillies didn't make. So we'll talk about that and some other headlines across the sports landscape. But I do have to tell you that our headlines are brought to us by our friends at Glad Hair Restoration, because if you want to change how you look and how you feel, bald is now optional. Head on over to gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. Let's start with the big news across Major League Baseball yesterday. Garrett Crochet is officially no longer a Chicago White Sox member of the Chicago White Sox, but he is not a Philly either. He's not a Met. He's not a Brave. He's not a Dodger. He's a Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
After the Red Sox and the White Sox agree to a deal that sends Garrett Crochet to Boston in exchange for 4 of the Red Sox top 15 prospects, including the number 25 ranked prospect Kyle Teal. He was their 4th ranked prospect. Braden Montgomery is the 5th. Chase Meadroth is the 11th. And then Wikelman Gonzalez is the 14th. So 3 bats and an arm head back to Chicago in exchange for Garrett Crochet. So I wanted to, A, get your thoughts on the amount of prospects, and B, now that we know what the cost of doing business for Garrett Crochet was, would you still have been in on the prospects the Phillies would have had to move in order to make this deal happen?
So the report was they were willing to trade Aiden Miller for Crochet at the trade deadline, and now they took him off the table. They were never going to trade Painter, and they shouldn't have traded Painter. Boston has a better farm system than the Phillies, so although they're trading their 3rd prospect or their 4th prospect, they're still higher prospects than the Phillies have. So it just didn't seem like it was a match. They wanted position players. Aiden Miller, Crawford's a nice piece, but like Crawford kind of is what he is, in my opinion. He could have been a good second piece. If you would have traded Aiden Miller and Crawford and another prospect, maybe you could have got the deal done. So here's what I'll say about it. I wasn't burning mad that the Phillies weren't willing to do it, but I'll say this. I trust Dave Dombrowski. I still have trust in Dave Dombrowski. And if Preston Mattingly and Dave Dombrowski and the Philly staff is saying, we're not trading Aiden Miller, he better be damn good, bro. Because otherwise you just missed out on an opportunity to have a potential Cy Young type pitcher in Garrett Crochet, who's just entering his prime. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because Dave Dombrowski is a Hall of Fame GM. But I was very bullish on Crochet for a reason. He's got elite stuff. So I was disappointed, but if they tell me Aiden Miller is untradeable, then okay. In July, he was tradable. So I don't know what they saw in the month or two after that, but the overall thing that sucks, Tyler, is that it just doesn't feel like there's going to be a big move this offseason.
No, I don't. I mean, the only one left, I think, at this point would be a Kyle Tucker move. But I think there's going to be auxiliary pieces. I think they do find a 5th starter. I think they bring another bullpen arm in. I don't think it's a Devin Williams, Ryan Helsley type of move, but I do think they bring somebody else in to replace. You bring Romano in, you still need another righty because you're conceivably going to lose 2 in Estevez and Hoffman. I think they make some more moves, but I think it's around the edges. I think it's middle to lower, I don't know how to properly phrase this, like low upper leverage relief. You know what I mean?
Under the radar.
Yeah.
You can significantly improve your team with some under the radar moves, not big moves. Dombrowski spoke last week and we talked about it where it felt like that he was giving us the heads up like, hey, we may not be having any of these big moves. Because he talked about specifically, he said, we're a really good team. We feel like we're a really good team. And unfortunately, I think he had intentions of trying to improve, maybe by moving Bohm, maybe by signing a bigger free agent, maybe by trading for Crochet. But you can't put the White Sox in a headlock and give you the trade, right? You can't make the Mariners give you the starting pitcher that you want for Bohm. So I don't like what he did at the trade deadline. So it does give me some reason for pause because he failed at the trade deadline. He really did.
Well, I thought his trade deadline on the onset was not a particularly strong one. I didn't like Austin Hayes all that much to begin with. I just felt like it was really strictly to be a platoon piece with Marsh and Hayes against the lefties and Marsh against the righties. And Rob Thompson said we're going to give him a chance to be an everyday player. Listen, you can't forecast kidney infection and injuries, right? But I think on the onset, it just wasn't a particularly exciting trade deadline. I thought the best trade that they made at the trade deadline was one that didn't help them last year, and it probably doesn't help them in 2025 either. I really like Moises Chase. I think he's better suited for the bullpen in the long run, but they want to see if he can be a starter. But, bringing in Tanner Banks was a whatever move. Yeah. Austin Hayes didn't feel great at the time. Seth Johnson is upper level. Is he a quad A guy? We'll find out this year. But, it was a pretty underwhelming trade deadline. And I think people, the way that the season ended, people are going to look at it and say, I want something drastic because it was an maybe not unexpected, but it was an unfortunate ending where it was a dreadful ending. Right.
Very disappointing. And by the way, we're conditioned because this team has made huge moves in the off seasons, right?
Sure.
From Bryce Harper to Trey Turner, Kyle
JT
Schwarber.
Realmuto.
Yeah, like they've made big moves. So yeah, it's like I'm going to continue to say I trust Dave Dombrowski, but he's got to get this right, man.
Sure.
I mean, like maybe it's trade deadline this year that he makes the move that kind of puts them over the top because it wasn't here to make in the offseason.
The one thing I will say that I have concern about, not because I don't think this kid's going to be legit. I think he's going to be an excellent major league starting pitcher. I don't know how much they're going to rely upon Andrew Painter this season. And I know people just say, hey, let the kid pitch, right? Whether he's pitching in AAA or in the majors, what's the difference? I'm cool with innings, like whatever their inning cap is. Like I don't care where he gets it.
Right.
I do care about saying, "All right, you're up. Let's go, kid." If he's not health-wise ready, and he seems like he's pitching. He pitched well in the Arizona Fall League,
yep.
And so I don't expect him to start the year with the team, but I do expect him to be on the team in some capacity in 2025. My question is, what's the innings cap, and what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, I don't really think you can have many expectations, and believe me, I know because. Like the expectation with Aiden Miller, I see it all the time on social media. Oh, well, he's your starting third baseman if they trade Bohm. Everybody just relax. The dude's 20 years old.
This year?
Yeah,
no way.
20, but dude, you have no idea.
In the future,
I know it's ridiculous.
Yes.
I know it's ridiculous to say 2024. Like he could start, like trade deadline, trade Bohm, Aiden Miller is your starter. Like you can't have that expectation. It's ridiculous.
It's a huge leap.
With Andrew Painter, I need to see the same thing I saw in the Arizona Fall League at some point this year, which is, oh, wow, this dude's going to be good. And then as you get into September and you start getting to the postseason, maybe you see him as a multiple inning reliever in the postseason. Maybe he becomes one of your starters in the postseason because he's got the most electric stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the name that seemingly continues to be like equated to him is David Price and what the Tampa Bay Rays did with David Price.
Perfect, yes.
Brought him up
the Phillies in 2008 in the World Series.
Used him in the bullpen and then unleashed him in 2009 as a starter, right? As a full-time, bona fide starter. Because the stuff, we all knew David Price was going to be an electric pitcher, in that 2008 World Series. It was just, when does he become a starter? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, how it's that like babying thing versus like throwing him to the wolves. Like, where do you find a middle ground?
You gotta be cautious. But hold on. So we'll finish up with the headlines after this because we gotta break here for a second. We'll finish up with the headlines, and then on the other side, there is also a rumor going on that's going around that this sale by Jeffrey Lurie could potentially be the start of a process for a new domed stadium for the Eagles. What do you think about that? That's next on Philly with Jon Marks. Hey, what's up? Glad Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical under the direction of renowned plastic surgeon Dr. Ken Morgenstern, who looks like a handsome Howie Roseman. Not that Howie's not handsome, he is. But here's what you're getting. You're getting the best in the business, the most experience and the most success when it comes to hair restoration. Glatt Hair, that's all that they do. Decades of proven results using an innovative approach and delivered by the leaders in the industry. Over 30 years of industry experience by their hair team. And I've known them for over a decade. Lisa, Cheryl, the whole hair team, they're experts. So when you walk in and you have your free consultation, they're going to pinpoint the course of action for you. I had a hair restoration procedure. It was perfect for me. Maybe you're not at that stage. There are other options like PRP and stem cell restoration. That's going to slow the thinning and the shedding of your hair. Vitamin supplementation, which is very popular these days. Topical oral medications, laser light therapy. Glatt Hair has something for all stages of hair loss. So get with them today. You can call their office and speak to their hair team right now at 610-980-4000. Tell them I said hello. 610-980-4000. Or the website. No obligation. Just call. Just look. Take a look at the pictures. My before and after pictures is glatthairmctr.com. glatthairmctr.com. Get with them today. All right, listen. Every weekend, the team at Bet Park Sportsbook and online casino presents check the BetParks app. You got to check it out. Double the spread. Yes, double the spread at noon on Friday for that weekend's selected pro football game. BetParks picks one pro football game every weekend, and you double the spread. Yes, you double the spread. It's a great offer for all BetParks users. And don't forget, on BetParks, you can always bet more than the score. Bet player performances for touchdowns, passing, rushing yards, interceptions, and more. And the BetParks Sportsbook app, double the spread every weekend. So again, on Friday at noon, they put out one game where they double the spread. BetParks.com has the terms and conditions. Double the spread, double the spread. There's always another way to win on the BetParks app. You must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Michigan, or Maryland. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Hoo-ah. All right, Tyler, what else do we have in headlines here?
Yeah, so we have a lot to get into. Obviously, the Rule 5 draft in Major League Baseball was last night. The Mike Vasil, we hardly knew you. The Phillies selected Mike Vasil in the Rule 5 draft from the New York Mets with the 14th overall pick in the Rule 5 draft. They then, a few hours later, traded him to the Tampa Bay Rays for what was an undisclosed amount of cash at the time. So Godspeed, Mike Vasil. Your Phillies career will be remembered among the likes of Frank Gore and some of the other guys that were here for about 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, it's Rule 5 draft, not to get too much in the weeds, but a lot of times when you're picking where you are, a team wants a player that's available, so you make the trade with them, you get some cash, and boom. The Phillies actually got Bobby Abreu. He wasn't a Rule 5 pick, but it was in the same kind of a process where you got him, and that ended up working out. The best Rule 5 player of all time is who, Tyler Zulli?
The best Rule 5 in Phillies history or
no,
ever?
In history.
Oh, it's a good question.
Johan Santana.
Ah, that's right. He was a Rule 5 pick. Johan Santana, who by the way, I think should get more credit towards Hall of Fame consideration than he does.
Awesome. What a great, and just like his changeup was so good, man.
Oh,
like he had pinpoint control, command, drop dead changeup. I love Santana. Santana was a great pitcher. All right, what else do we have?
Speaking of the Rule 5, the Phillies do lose one prospect in the Rule 5 draft. Iverson Castillo was selected by the Minnesota Twins in the 2024 Rule 5 draft. Castillo was the Phillies minor league pitcher of the year last year. That did not put him on the 40, which obviously made him available in the Rule 5. The Twins pick up Castellanos, excuse me.
So, I mean, don't you have to, if he's your pitcher of the year in the minors, don't you have to protect him? And there's only a certain amount of players you can protect. I get it. I guess they thought that
they protected Abel.
So how it works is that Castellano has to stay on the major league roster of the Twins for the entire season, or he'd have to be offered back to the Phillies, and the Phillies can take him back and put him in their minor league system. Shane Victorino, actually, when speaking of Phillies Rule 5 draft picks, he was Rule 5 once. The Dodgers Rule 5'd him from the Padres. The Padres, yeah. So the Padres lost him the Rule 5 to the Dodgers. The Dodgers lost him a Rule 5 to the Phillies. The Phillies actually offered him back to the Dodgers because they tried to send him down, and the Dodgers declined. So Victorino went down to AAA, and then he won I believe he was the MVP of the International League, and then he came back up the next year and was with the Phillies. So he could be potentially back with the Phillies if they don't keep him. But you have to keep him on the major league roster. The problem with that is if the guy's not ready for the major leagues, then what do you do?
Sure.
So I don't know if this guy's ready for the major leagues. He's got good stuff, but he hasn't pitched above AA.
Yep. Let's go from tangible stuff to rumors and reports. There are 4 teams, apparently, according to Joel Sherman, that are interested in the services of Kyle Tucker. Now, if you'd asked 30 teams across the board, they would all say they want a player like Kyle Tucker, but interested in trading for Kyle Tucker. That includes the San Francisco Giants, Chicago Cubs, New York Yankees, and the Phillies.
Yeah. I mean, do you do it without an extension? I mean, if you're going to...
I think an extension has to be part of the conversation.
Agreed. Yeah, because you're having to give up Miller to get him, right? Like, it seems like if Miller's off the table, he's off the table. I just don't know if they have enough...
No, I think in that deal, Miller would be available. I do.
Like, I mean, Tucker takes you in, like, he's your outfielder for the next 5 years because you're signing him to an extension.
Right.
So, like, from that perspective, like, listen, I'll trade any prospect but Painter. I don't care. They obviously feel differently about Miller. It just, to me, it feels like it's going to be difficult to get Tucker because of the asking price. But I'm sure they're kicking the tires, brother.
Yeah. So one final story. Talk about some. If I had told you this 2 years ago, this would have been a super interesting headline to read. After Mac Brown steps away from UNC at 73 years old, North Carolina will be replacing a 73-year-old head football coach with a 72-year-old head football coach, as Bill Belichick will be the head coach of the Tar Heels. He inked a 5-year deal.
They got younger, Tyler.
They got younger, just by a little bit. But he has worked in the NFL in some capacity since 1975 until last year, of course, when he was no longer with the New England Patriots. This is his first college coaching job. Some stipulations and rumors to report that part of the deal was that when Belichick does retire or step down as the head coach, the next head coach at UNC would be his son, Steven.
Steve.
This is a weird dynamic. Curious your thoughts about this signing, especially in the age of the NIL deal. It feels to me like this might be a situation that Bill Belichick was brought in to almost play like general manager of UNC football. He's going to coach the team, obviously, but like to be the almost contracts guy, if you will.
Well, I mean, then Mike Lombardi's coming in to normally his fluffer, Mike Lombardi. He's going to be their GM,
right?
I think he comes in and he runs the organization like it's a little NFL. Well, we'll talk about it with Uncle Jamie because we were texting about it last night. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's as intriguing a move as anything that's happened in sports in a long time, and I'm curious to see how it ends up working out. So let's get to this. We talked about Jeffrey Lurie earlier, and so he sold 8% of the team, $664 million. Eagles are valued at $8.3 billion, which is like, wow, that's awesome. Well, why is he selling it? So there's some people that are saying, and I know Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad put this out there, and it's just not him putting out a wild rumor. If you look at the thread that he put out on Twitter, and I'm sure he's writing something up for this, like there's a lot of reasons to believe based on Lurie's comments, based on a lot of other factors that the Eagles are looking at their options going forward for a new stadium. Now, Lincoln Financial Field at this point is 21 years old. All right. While that may not seem old, and like the Linc isn't like the Vet or anything like that, but like you just don't decide, hey, we want a new stadium, and then 2 years later the stadium. I mean, it takes years to plan, years of going back and forth with the city, with the state, with negotiations and things like that, and then it takes years to build, right? So now is really when you want to start planning for a new stadium in the future. So there's a lot of different reasons. Maybe we'll have Kevin on sometime to talk about this because I think it's awesome. But yeah, so there's been 9 stadiums that opened up after 2003 and 4 that opened up in 2002. So once you get 9 years from now, believe me, they're going to want a new stadium. The Eagles are going to want to move on from Lincoln Financial Field. So then what do? Like, it's going to happen, and it's probably going to be privately financed. You know that the Linc is not owned by the Eagles. It's operated by the Eagles. It was an agreement. The Eagles put in a third of the money, the state put in a third of the money, and the city put in a third of the money. Back when Ed Rendell was the governor of Pennsylvania, he said, listen, I'm going to make sure the Phillies get a new ballpark, the Eagles get a new ballpark, and both teams in Pittsburgh get new ballparks. Everybody pretty much got the new park at the same time, the new stadium at the same time. And it was a great move by Ed Rendell. So now things have changed. Now, sure, you get incentives by the state, but the Eagles are probably going to want to own the stadium because that's more money for them. So now this is a huge infusion of cash to where they can really start making some moves. So I don't know if this is going to be something that comes out in the next year or whatever, but just the idea in general of a dome stadium in Philadelphia. And I feel like I already know what a lot of the reaction is going to be to the idea of the Eagles playing in a dome stadium. And I would say a retractable roof more than a dome stadium because I don't need it to be a dome all the time. What do I think about a retractable roof dome stadium? I love it. Are you kidding me? A Super Bowl in Philadelphia, a Final Four in Philadelphia, any event that is out there that Philadelphia doesn't get because they're not equipped, because they don't have the proper stadium to do it, they can now get. And you know what? Maybe it's because I'm getting older. I don't need to freeze my ass off at a game. I like going to a game where the temperature's controlled and it's 72 degrees and I can just walk right in. I don't have to worry about the elements. I don't have to worry about the wind. I don't have to worry about the cold. Like, 72 degrees. I can take off my jacket. I can wear my Eagles hoodie and I'm completely comfortable. So for a potential dome stadium for the Eagles, not even 2 thumbs up. Can I get it even higher? You can't even see how high my thumbs up are in the camera shot, Tyler Zulli. Give me the dome stadium and give it to me now.
It's funny because every time I approach this subject with people, most of the time the response is, well, it's football. It's supposed to be played in the elements. That's part of the game. That's what they did at Franklin Field in 1960 and 1948 and 1949 when the Eagles were winning NFL championships. And I don't have an argument for that, right? Like if you want the game to be an elemental game, then I'm not going to fight you on it. But I enjoy the product being the best product it could be. And I think the best product it can be is when the players are capable of going at full capacity and full speed and full, aggressive and physicality without having to trudge through a swamp or the snow or 40-mile-an-hour winds. So, like, I've always said, I think any stadium that is in a freeze area, like it could snow, it could freeze, it could be, sleet, should have retractable roofs. And people don't like when I say that because, again, you go back to the elements thing.
Supposed to be in the elements.
Yeah, the autumn winds, right? The
home field advantage.
Right. But my retort is,
autumn winds.
If the Eagles and the Lions play in a controlled environment, that's going to be the best game possible.
Oh my God!
In terms of talent level, that's the best game possible because you're not worrying about slipping. You're not worrying about the wind affecting field goals and extra points. You're not worrying about whatever the element is, right? The human element of being cold. Nobody likes to be cold, right? I don't think, at least. You might say I don't like the heat, but nobody likes to be cold. So I've always said, like, I think a retractable roof would make a ton of sense for
be awesome
colder cities. And if that's my weak take, like you're being weak,
then I'm weak.
Then so be it.
I am weak.
But like the way that I've always looked at it, I almost go back to Major League Baseball, right? At some point, just by sheer circumstance of how cyclical sports are, at some point in the universe's existence, we're going to get a Rockies and Twins World Series. Are we going to talk about a snow out for the World Series?
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think at some point, and we probably won't see it in our lifetime, but everything's going to have a retractable roof on it. Because why wouldn't you?
I think it should. I think it's.
Why wouldn't you?
If you're going to build the stadium anyway, right? And I'm not talking about like right now the Linc needs to be removed. It's 20. What'd you say? 21.
They're getting a new stadium in 10 years at most.
It's possible.
Their lease is up, I think, in 9 years.
So I'm not saying it has to be right now. I'm not saying you have to build it to the foundation of the Linc as currently constructed. But I think if you do decide it's time for a new stadium moving forward, to me that I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I would love it. And I've never been into a game in a dome or that had a roof on, except in Tampa Bay, Tropicana Field, where I said this sucks.
And by the way, Eddie Powers makes a good point. There's a reason why we keep using retractable roof and not dome. Because in September, when it's 65 degrees out and it's beautiful football weather,
keep it open.
Keep the roof open, right? And you play it in a beautiful Sunday afternoon in October. I'm talking more about the feels like 7 NFC Championship game.
So, like the one argument that I hear that I understand is if you have a dome or a retractable roof, you don't get the snowball. You don't get games like that are iconic. Shady running around, Riley Cooper in the snow catching a touchdown. Like you miss out on those opportunities. And you know what I say to that? I say, well, that's why we have YouTube and other things so we can go back and we can watch those games. Because that's like a once in a generation type thing that happened. It was a snow squall. It wasn't even a planned snowstorm. And it was awesome. But the the chance of having a Super Bowl and a Final Four in Philadelphia is like, that's awesome. I guess I'm just old, man. By the way, I put a Twitter poll out at Jon Marks Media. 58% do not want it, which is not surprised.
I'm not shocked.
I'm not shocked.
And again, I think the verbiage of dome versus retractable roof is what would change it for a lot of people. Like, I think people hear dome and they immediately go, nope, I'm out. If you phrase it as retractable roof, maybe you have a different conversation.
I guess, but really, like, it's still the same thing. In December, that it's not going to be open. And the people, they were, like my buddy Dumpf that has all the tattoos all over his body. He needs it to be 10 degrees out with his shirt off, right? Like, I don't need it. I don't need my shirt. I don't need it to be 10 degrees out of me at a game.
I will say this, however, Jeffrey Lurie, if you're listening, Eagles ownership, if you're listening, if you are going to build the retractable roof, don't be stupid like the Dallas Cowboys and face one of your windows to the sun. That would be appreciated.
Something tells me. I forgot about that was also a big part of the Cowboy. He refuses to put the curtains on the windows because he's out of spite because he's so stubborn. All right, coming up, we're going to bring on our college football expert, Uncle Jamie. Bill Belichick to North Carolina. I can't wait to talk about this. Also, the college football playoff, just over a week away. We discuss all of that on Philly with Jon Marks next. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, let's talk about Uncle Jamie and his dealership, Central City Toyota. That's correct. Central City Toyota, I've been a customer legitimately since 2005. It's the first new car that I bought, 2005 Corolla. From there, I went RAV4, had a Camry. Now I have a Highlander, or been a couple Highlanders. My wife had a Highlander. Now she's got a Sienna. And Central City Toyota. Toyota's a great car. Central City Toyota is a great dealership. In the heart of University City, 55 years on Chestnut Street. You only survive 55 years as a car dealership if you're great and you do a great job and you have a great business, and that's Central City Toyota, and largest parts and service dealership in the city of Philadelphia. So if you're looking to get your car serviced, maybe you work in Center City, bam, drop the car off, get it serviced, pick it up after work. By appointment basis only, centralcitytoyota.com. They'll come and grab your car, take it up to the dealership, service it, drop it back off for you. CentralCityToyota.com. And it's Toyotathon. If you're looking to upgrade your ride, Toyotathon this month, man, they got deals. They're looking to move units. CentralCityToyota.com. Check them out. Go in, ask for Uncle Jamie. Say, hey, Uncle Jamie, give me a deal. CentralCityToyota.com. All right, it's game time, everybody. The only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase, right? So check it out. They have something where you can filter incredible deals on great seats with Game Time Picks. You can see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy. It's amazing. All-in prices show you total cost up front. You can buy tickets in 2 seconds with 2 taps. And right now, the code PHLY gets you $20 off. And Game Time's focus on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And it's a great gift. Every year I used to get tickets from my Aunt Kathy for a 76er game. So do that if you're looking for a unique and an interesting idea, right? And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for live events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Game Time guarantee, you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. Job assurance loss. You lose your job, they'll refund you. No problem. Event cancellation protection. Automatic full refunds for events that are canceled and not rescheduled. And you have a 24-hour return guarantee. You can return your tickets within 24 hours of purchase for a full credit to your Game Time account. No questions asked. So again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for 20% off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Game time. It's game time, everybody. All right, well, we don't have a lot of games this weekend. Army-Navy, but we do have the college football playoff that starts next week. I believe Friday night is the first game. Yes, Indiana at Notre Dame next Friday night to kick it off. That's the first round. We'll talk about that coming up with our college football expert. Normally he gives you the locks of the week, but today we'll just talk a little college football. It's Uncle Jamie. Jamie Haberly from Central City Toyota joins us. What's up, Jamie?
Good morning. Good morning. Good times. You hear me okay?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, good. Perfect. You go to bed last night, you wake up and you see Belichick finalizes his deal. What does that tell you about the landscape of college football? Mike Lombardi becomes his general manager. So these major college programs now have general managers, head coaches from the NFL. I mean, these are, if you're thinking there's a big separation between the NFL and Division I college football anymore, zero, basically.
Yeah.
These people are going to be recruited in middle school, high school, agents, general managers, NFL head coaches to the NFL. I mean, the NFL has essentially made the college football a true minor leagues, like in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's and we'll talk about the college football playoff in a second. But you mentioned Lombardi and the structure. I mean, they essentially have a salary cap now, right? Like Woj goes to St. Bonaventure essentially to be a fundraiser because they need money because you need money to get players. And it's interesting because Belichick goes in. He's more or less got a front office structure now. He's going to have recruiters. He's going to have fundraisers. He's going to have Mike Lombardi that's running the whole thing. And then he brings his NFL structure to North Carolina. It's fascinating. It really is. And this is like, you're going to see more of this. You're going to see not guys like Bill Belichick necessarily, but you're going to see college programs run like this. You're already seeing it. Alabama has a GM. Guys are making real money because they need it. They do. Yeah. So the difference though, Jamie, with Belichick, everybody's on a one-year contract in college. I don't know if they're going to be able to change that anytime soon, but free agencies year after year, you don't get to tie guys up for a couple of years, which is going to present challenges. I'm fascinated to see how this works out. This is one of the best stories that Belichick could have went to Jacksonville or could have went to Chicago and honestly, I'm not sure he would have gotten an NFL job, which maybe contributed to this. This is so much of a better story that he goes to Carolina because, I mean, does he turn them into a 9-win team and they make the college football playoff? Does he fail? I can't wait to see how it plays out.
There's a great article I was reading online from the Charlotte Observer, really good columnist down there, good paper. And he gave you a sort of a history of North Carolina football. And since 1882, it is not a storied history. Obviously, one of the comments in there was from a former assistant at North Carolina, and his comment is that all the school cares about is beating Duke, and then he put a basketball emoji.
Right.
Not much else matters at big North Carolina, but it'll be interesting to see if Belichick can draw from having the Michael Jordan, the Nike, influence and how that all play into NIL. You would presume that he will be able to draw a big budget for that program based upon his name, who's from North Carolina, the institution. And if you're a big recruit, man, you want to go play in the NFL, it would not hurt you to go to a school like North Carolina, be like with a guy like Belichick and have that imprimatur going into the NFL. And I think you're right about Belichick and the NFL. I think the NFL has passed that kind of coach by right now. Things go back and forth. But I think right now the idea is that, listen, you're drafting these young quarterbacks. You're at the bottom of the league. You need a quarterback whisperer. You need a Sean McVay. Everybody's looking for Sean McVay, right? So, it's just interesting that, the Parcells, Belichick, old school type of NFL coach, I think is going to go by the wayside. And I'm fascinated, as you are, that he decided to go back to college. I think it's a great, great, great story.
I still think he'll struggle to get quarterbacks, skill position guys, right? Kind of like with the Patriots, outside of Tom Brady. I mean, you look at the wide receivers he's had over the years. You have Randy Moss and you have everybody else, right? Like he would get running backs kind of off the scrap heap and he would have success with that. But I think like the recruiting's one thing, but with how players can move from year to year, if you're going into your junior year or you're going into your senior year and you're a linebacker, or you're a defensive lineman, or you're an offensive lineman, and you're playing for some loser coach in the Big 12. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, we'll come to play. We'll pay you to go to Carolina. And Bill Belichick's going to say, hey, you'll be a 3rd-round draft pick after you play for me this year. I'll get you drafted in the NFL. As it stands right now, you're not going to be drafted. You come to Carolina. Yeah. So I think you're going to see strong offensive lines, strong defenses, and then they're going to have to spend money to get quarterbacks and wide receivers. Because guess what? If I'm a wide receiver or I'm a quarterback, I'm going to get paid no matter where I go. And I'm probably not going to play for Bill Belichick. So he's probably going to have the same type of teams that he had in New England that are built around defense, and he's going to have to get enough talent on offense to where they can win games. I don't think he turns him into a national power, but they haven't won a bowl game in 40 years, right? I mean, that's almost impossible.
It's an incredible amount of frustration with that program. So, to your point, what does he do? Obviously he started as a defensive backs coach, right? So who knows how he turns that and makes it look, but to draw the line to a college playoff, you take a team like Clemson, didn't do anything in the portal. You look at Oklahoma State, obviously not in the playoff, 3-9 this year. Jeff Gundy had to take a pay cut to stay at Oklahoma State. He's not a big transfer portal guy. So, you look at the programs that have made the playoff. Listen, they're transfer portal teams or big NIL teams. That's what you're competing against to get to the college playoff. That's the teams.
Yeah. Speaking of the college playoff, Indiana, Notre Dame starts it off on Friday night. What were your takeaways from the bracket, Uncle Jamie? Because my first takeaway, and I guess it's because Penn State's kind of our local team here, Oregon ended up getting screwed in their draw for being the best team in the country by far. Penn State, meanwhile, they have a path to the semifinals, handed to them almost. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable how the bracket worked out. You think about these brackets, and you think about the basketball bracket each year, March Madness, and you think about, wow, who's got the best path to get to the place? Penn State's got a great path. Oregon, very hard path to get to where they're going. I'm fascinated by the Battle of Indiana, man. I don't know what to make of Notre Dame. The competition they played was not so great. They played Navy and Army when they were both ranked and obliterated both of them. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that program with Marcus Freeman. I think this guy down in Indiana's got a good team, but I'd like to see him obliterated in the first round just because he's just talking way too much. Just be happy that you have a good team and that you made the playoff and Indiana football is relevant for this year. Can you stop with all the chest pumping? But Penn State being able to have that ability to sail through and potentially get to a national semifinal, that would mitigate a lot of the criticism that is levied at James Franklin, at least this year. Losing the 2 big games that Penn State had.
Yeah, Penn State's biggest win was Illinois. I was looking at their schedule last night. But when you look at their draw, potentially they're playing Georgia, right? And it's not like Georgia was super duper impressive this year, right?
Backup quarterback, right?
Carson Beck stinks, by the way. Yeah. But so Oregon's going to play Tennessee, Ohio State winner. That's not going to be Ohio State. That's not going to be easy. And then they could face Texas. Yeah. And so it's going to be really interesting. So Friday, there's 1 game. Then there's 3 games on Saturday. This is next week. SMU at Penn State. It's the noon game, so I'm sure Penn State fans are going to be whining about that. Why are we the 12 o'clock game?
Well, they're doing a whiteout again. They've announced that they're doing the whiteout, but they're mad that they have to play at 12 o'clock to do their whiteout. I mean, you can't make it up.
So then the quarters are New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day, and then the semis are the following week. So we're gonna have college football. I mean, they're going pretty much for the next month here in this college football playoff. For all the people that say this waters down everything, well, of course more teams is going to water it down, but it's not too watered down, right? It's still, I don't care if Clemson got in. Let them get their ass kicked by somebody and get them out of there. The more teams, the better. This is awesome.
I love it. I think, and they're obviously looking to expand this from 12 to 16s. I can't get enough of it. I love this idea. I love the concept. It gives so much juice to the bowl season. I mean, people didn't really care about any of the bowls. Now you got a lot of great games to look forward to. You got a couple non-playoff games that'll be interesting. Michigan's going to play Alabama. Two big brands that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I love it also, John. I can't wait until we get to see these teams play each other in these formats with this amount of hype. And imagine matriculating all the way through the bracket and getting to that championship game. I mean, that is an accomplishment to win it this year. And I hope in every way that it's a surprise team. I would love to see one of these teams. I'd love to see a Boise play for the title. I mean, how awesome would that be?
I'm curious to see how the Boise's and the SMUs and the Indianas fare against the more traditional programs that you're used to seeing right here. All right, Uncle Jamie, Toyotathon, you still got deals going on down there?
We do. It's a big month for us. So a lot of good stuff coming on with Toyotathon. A lot of cars available. A lot of interest rates. A lot of specials that we're doing. Our service and parts departments are extremely busy, and we have a buy 3 get 1 tire deal in our service department. You took advantage of that back in October when we ran that program. So yeah, it's a great time to come down to Central City and visit with us.
Now, have you ever had anybody drive through your window like the guy did with the Subaru?
I saw that. Well, that's a good point, John. Is that we sell quality used cars here. We're not going to sell you a Subaru that's got an engine light on that you're going to potentially have to drive through my showroom with. So you can be sure that the cars that we have gone through our 160-point check. You'll be happy to know.
Certified Toyotas, not what that poor guy got that had to drive his car through.
Exactly.
All right, CentralCityToyota.com to see everything that Uncle Jamie and Central City Toyota has, or just stop by right there at the heart of University City on Chestnut Street. Uncle Jamie, thank you. We'll talk to you next week. Have your picks ready. You're picking them all next week.
I will be ready. I am juiced and ready. Talk to you soon. Take care.
There he is, Uncle Jamie. There you go. Tyler Zulli, probably very, very nervous as his Penn State Nittany Lions heading into a showdown against SMU, Southern Methodist University.
Yeah, I don't think I'd say nervous.
No?
I think they're the better of the two teams. And I've been an SMU fan all year.
Yeah.
Like, this is a good offense. I like this team a lot. I think they're the better of the two teams. You and Jamie laid it out. We talked like weeks ago. My worry was, can they win the first game? Because I think they could beat, especially if they ended up in the playing the Boise State, Arizona State winner. I think they could beat that winner. My worry was, can they win the first game if it's going to end up being Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, if they fall too much. This is a really good setup for Penn State. Now, granted, they've got to still win the game. But I think SMU, Boise State to get to the semifinals is about as good as you could get if you're Penn State.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And you look at Texas has Clemson and then Arizona State. Arizona State's been a nice story this year. They should have no business beating Texas, honestly. So we'll see. It's going to be fun. Army Navy this weekend. Let me give you my elevator pitch on Army Navy. I don't even know what the spread is. I haven't even looked at it. It is by far one of my favorite events that I've ever been to. And every year I watch the game on TV. And if you haven't been to an Army-Navy game, and I think they're not back here till 2027, and it rips my heart out that it's not in Philly every year. It really, really does. But it is something that is difficult to describe until you're in the stadium, and it's breathtaking. Seeing all the cadets and the midshipmen dressed, the songs that are being during the game, just seeing the city and seeing everybody out during the city, seeing everybody in their uniforms during the weekend, and then you go into a game, it is something that's as special as any sporting event I've ever been to. And if you haven't been to an Army-Navy game, when they come back to Philly in a couple of years, check it out, because it is truly, it's not something that can be described. It is that good and that special. And the rivalry itself, it means a lot to me. It does. It's a very special game that I watch every year. So, and again, it's coming up on Saturday. And the teams, Tyler, are actually good this year. Both teams are good.
Yeah, Army's, by the way, you're asking for the numbers, 6.5-point favorites. The Army is over Navy. The over-under this year has jumped 11 points from last year. Last year, John, the game total was 28. This year, It's 39.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Well, Army's ranked. They just beat up on Tulane, and Navy, for the most part, always has a pretty good team at this point. Yeah, so like I'm ready for it. It's a great game. I remember one year I went. It was so cold. I don't know how many years ago this was. Maybe like 10 years ago. It was so cold out. I remember doing an ice luge, like where they pour the shots or whatever in the ice luge, and like my face stuck to the ice luge, like I couldn't get the beard off. I had to be like.
Yeah. So, by the way, Blake Horvath, who hasn't played in a couple of weeks, not sure if it's going to be mostly Bryson Daly, I would presume, at quarterback. A lot of running, a lot of options, as you talked about. But yes, a very, very a really cool event that I agree with you. I think should be at the Linc every year. Just an excellent game, and I love that they kind of isolated on this weekend. It's the only game that's being played in Division I. The tradition, the heritage, the honor of this game, I think, is an excellent, excellent tradition. I think somebody once said, right, it's the only two teams in college football whose players are willing to die for you.
It's a good way to put it.
I think it's a really, really awesome, excellent tradition that, even if you're not a fan of either team or you're not a huge college football fan, it's a really cool game to get to take in.
I remember the last time I think they played at Veterans Stadium, because it used to be they played every year in Philly.
I think they should. I think they absolutely should. But I get why they're moving it. Viewership and different markets and things like that. I understand it.
They went to Baltimore first when the Ravens built the stadium down there. But the one year they used to have these, they would roll in the vet, they would have these temporary seats. They had to change the configuration because of the Phillies. And these rolled in seats collapsed. So the fans, and I think they were Army or Navy people, they were like there, and the whole thing's just like collapsed, and everybody flew to the ground. That was such a dump. All right, well, we made it through another show. Thank you to everybody that's watching live on YouTube. If you can't get a chance to watch live on YouTube, that's totally okay, because you can watch the show whenever. Just subscribe, hit the subscribe button, PHLY Sports, like, comment, get involved in the show that way, right? Otherwise, shout out to the Mad Chatters that are here every morning as we create a community here on Philly with Jon Marks. And our podcast listeners, if you're listening to this right now, thank you for listening. Wherever you get your podcasts, if you don't get to catch us on YouTube, hey, you can listen whenever, wherever. Just search Philly with Jon Marks wherever you find your podcast. Give us a good review so people can find us and can enjoy the show like you do. Everybody have a great day. We're back tomorrow. We'll really gear up for this Pittsburgh Steeler-Eagle game on Sunday. It's going to be a big one. Switch over to Anthony. He's live right now on PHLY. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.